I hate travel scams. I literally want to hunt these scammers down and give them a swift kick in the nuts. Seriously, you think you heard them all and then bam, they come up with a crazy new scam to catch travelers like us off guard. Luckily, if you watch this video, you can prevent that from happening. Especially number 5, which is the scam that pisses me off the most and is actually really sad. Let's go. Okay, I'm walking around Cali, Colombia right now, which probably isn't very smart, so let's hope I don't get robbed while I'm telling you about travel scams, because that would be ironic. The first is the Airbnb text scam, which comes from a commenter on one of my other videos. And as I'll explain in a sec, this scam actually goes much deeper than what happened to this commenter. Long story short, she thought that her Airbnb Wi-Fi had been hacked because she tried to email the airlines to change her flight, and the response was that the flight had been canceled because of her credit card information and that she needed to fix it. They wanted her to send in her credit card information, and that's when her spidey senses kicked in and she actually reached out to the airline directly and realized that there was nothing wrong with her flights. Okay, so let's break this down. First, the Airbnb Wi-Fi dangers, and then some other items inside your Airbnb that you need to be careful about. We all probably know by now that it's not safe to do sensitive transactions in public Wi-Fi like coffee shops and airports, for example. But it's easy to forget that the Wi-Fi in your Airbnb can be just as insecure and sometimes even worse. This isn't due to bad hosts trying to scam you or anything. It's more likely from prior guests who have tampered with the Wi-Fi. In public places like a coffee shop, the router is usually somewhat protected. But in an Airbnb, the router is usually left out in the open where a hacker can easily hack into it and steal any future data that runs through the network without anyone really knowing about it. So never let your guard down in an Airbnb or a hotel, and if you don't know who set up the Wi-Fi, then just always assume it's compromised and use a VPN to protect yourself. I've been using Surfshark VPN for years while I'm traveling and also at home, and this video isn't sponsored or anything, but if you want a huge discount, I'll leave my referral link down in the description. But the Wi-Fi isn't the only thing you need to be careful with in your Airbnb. Scammers can also hack into smart TVs and other devices, so when you type in your username and password, they can see it. And you might think, well, who cares if a scammer sees my Netflix user ID and password? Doesn't matter. Well, the problem is many people use the same user ID and password for many different accounts, like your Gmail account and your bank accounts and Amazon accounts, and scammers know this. So in addition to using a VPN in public places, another way to stay safe is to simply use strong and unique passwords, different passwords for all your different accounts. And the easiest way to remember them all is to use a password manager like LastPass or Bitwarden. All right, let's go to a cool coffee shop before both of my iPhones get yanked. Yeah, buddy, check out this bad boy. So I call this next travel scam the ex-tour operator travel scam, but really it can take unlimited forms. And you can avoid all of them by just remembering one rule. So this scam happened to another Project Untethered subscriber, and basically he booked a tour on a popular travel platform called Viator, and here's what he said. He received a phone call from his Viator excursion saying he was leaving Viator, and if he still wanted to take the tour, that he could book it directly through his website. And the guy who called him had his number, his excursion information, and everything, and the only way he could have gotten this information was through Viator. And so he thinks that Viator must have been hacked, which I'm not so sure. But basically, this subscriber rebooked his tour through this site, and once he got to the meeting place, the tour guide just didn't show up and didn't return calls, and in the end, he got scammed. He called up Viator about it, and they basically said, too bad, so sad. This guy mentioned that he thinks that Viator had gotten hacked, but after meeting with a cybersecurity expert recently, I think that he actually might have been hacked, maybe because he was using a public Wi-Fi without a VPN. And when he made his booking and all the information was on the screen, the hacker could see what he was doing. I also almost fell for a version of this scam on booking.com, and I actually explained the whole thing in detail in another scams video I made that has been seen over 500,000 times now. So I'll link to that one in case you want to watch it next. To avoid scams like the Viator and Booking.com scam, you really just need to follow one rule. If a company ever reaches out to you via phone calls or emails or messages or even within their own app and they ask for sensitive information, never give it to them. This applies especially if they contact you shortly after you make a booking saying that something is wrong with your booking and you need to fix it. They may even mention details about your booking that you'd think that only someone who works there would really know, but don't fall for it. Instead, go to the company's official website, find their real contact information, and call them and figure out what's going on. The reason I put real contact information in air quotes here is because there's actually another scam that's been all over the news that I call the search engine interference scam. Here's how it works. So there are many reasons why you would need to contact a travel company like an airline or car rental company or hotel. Let's say you need to change your flight dates, so you Google American Airlines customer service and then the phone number pops up right at the top of the Google search results. You call the number, a customer service rep answers the phone, they ask you for your last name and your reservation code, you give it to them, and then they charge you an expensive fee to change your flights. The problem is you weren't actually talking to an American Airlines customer service agent, you were talking to a scammer. That fee you just paid went straight to their bank account, and probably even worse, once you get to the airport, you'll probably realize that they didn't even change your flights, so you're in for an unpleasant surprise. It turns out sometimes scammers are able to game the system in Google and get to the top of the Google search results so that their phone number is showing instead of the actual phone number. But it gets even worse. There's also people who have gotten scammed when they actually called the correct customer service number. These cases seem to have happened when the person was calling using one of those VoIP internet phone numbers like a Skype number or Google Voice, and they weren't actually using a real phone number. The airline reps responded by saying that if you're going to use these types of VoIP services, that you need to make extra careful that you're using a secure line. By the way, this video just covers 5 sneaky travel scams, but if you want the full list of travel scams, make sure to download my free cheat sheet down in the description below. Okay, so if you've been subscribed to Project Untethered for a while, you've probably heard about me telling the stories of me getting scammed buying my SIM cards while traveling abroad. But what I didn't realize was just how common this scam is, and especially where it's happening in the world. One commenter shared that they got scammed in Italy trying to buy a SIM card from the official station because when they were setting things up, everything was in Italian and they didn't understand it. And so the guy helping him sneakily signed him up for a recurring charge. So it was charging his credit card every single month. And the only way that he could stop it was to dispute the charges with his credit card company. And then he ended up having to cancel his credit card because he kept getting charged. I thought this was interesting because a similar-ish thing happened to us in Brazil, and I ended up having to cancel my credit card, which was kind of a headache because I was traveling in Thailand at the time. So this is just one of the many reasons why I now only use travel eSIMs when I'm traveling, and I don't buy local SIM cards anymore. They're just not worth the headache to me. And you might think, yeah, I've been buying physical SIM cards all the time and I've never had any problems, and that's awesome, I'm happy for you, but it only takes one time to ruin your vacation vibes, and it's really not a matter of if, but when it will happen. I've tested 10 of the most popular travel eSIM companies, and I'll link to my favorite ones below along with some discount codes. And if you're wondering why these huge trumpets are here, it's because Cali is the capital of salsa dancing, and if you go down inside of it, you can hear salsa music. Pretty cool, huh? This next one really makes my blood boil. So imagine you're on a trip racing rickshaws across Sri Lanka and posting pictures of your adventure online so everyone believes all the cool things that you're doing. Life is good, the wind is blowing through your hair, and you're feeling pretty awesome. But then that feeling immediately vanishes when you get a message from home saying that a scammer called your confused grandma, pretended to be you, told her that you were trapped in a Sri Lankan prison and that you needed her to send you $10,000 to get out. Even though she was a bit confused, she remembers you telling her that you were in Sri Lanka, so the story checks out for her and she sends the scammer her money. Sadly, tricks like this work really well on elderly people, not just because they're more confused, but also because they tend to just be more scared of foreign lands. I remember one time calling my grandma and mentioning to her that I was traveling in Vietnam and she suddenly got all scared and said that she was praying for me to come home soon so that I could leave the war zone. You might not think something like this could ever happen to you, but last year alone, the FBI reported that $3.4 billion with a B were lost to senior fraud. And even if you don't think you have anyone in your life who could fall for this scam, it's still not a good idea to be posting your live location of your trip on social media. This is essentially like sending a welcome invitation to thieves to come rob your empty home. And speaking of thieves, as a traveler, you're going to be a target. That's just the facts of life. Fortunately, I've discovered some tricks that you can use to outsmart thieves at their own game. So watch this video next if you want to keep your valuables safe on your next trip. I guarantee there are some tips in there that you have never heard of before. All right, guys, like, subscribe, do the thing. Love you. Bye-bye.